Welcome to Heart of the Matter. My name is Dipo Ayo Adeosi. Today we're going to be talking to Tonye Faloughi-Ekezie, and she is the MD of Teeof Media and the founder of Simone's Oasis. She's going to be talking to us today about her passion, which is special needs children. Very important right now in Nigeria. People need a lot of information and a lot of tips on how to deal with special needs. I cannot wait to talk to her. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Heart of the Matter. We're going to be discussing with our amazing and inspiring guest, Tonye Faloughi-Ekezie. I said that right?
Yes, you did well.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
I'm super excited to be talking to you, actually.
I'm super excited to be here.
Because I think that it's about time that we start to talk about issues that you are very much involved with and interested in to educate the just Nigerians in general, Nigerian audience, the Nigerian population, everybody. They need to know about some of these things.
Definitely.
So let's get into it. So, you are MD Teeof Media.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So what
does that mean?
What does Teeof Media do?
Well, in Nigeria, anybody can be an MD of something, right?
Everybody's an MD and a CEO of something.
But my background is in TV and film production. I worked for Mnet, I commissioned a lot of shows, and then I started my own company, so it was just kind of entertainment consultancy work. I would do production Bibles, work on scripts, work on films, and do a few things, and made a decent name for myself.
Okay. Wow, I just have so many questions from that, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But let's get to sort of what you champion, and some of the things that you actually enjoy doing and you are passionate about, which is special needs children and dealing with special needs children and just special needs in general.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Well, it all comes from the fact that I have a daughter with Down syndrome.
Okay.
So the story behind that is that she wasn't diagnosed at birth. She was born in America. It wasn't picked up then. And then we went to England just in our transition time. And it wasn't picked up then. So it wasn't until we were back in Nigeria at 4.5 months, it was found that she had Down syndrome. The doctor here was the one who spotted it and literally saved her life, because about 60% of kids with Down syndrome have a congenital heart defect. I hate saying the long word, I usually just say CHD. And it's not usually so bad. It can be fixed with medicine, or it can be fixed with minor heart surgeries, and they can do those minor heart surgeries here in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, okay.
But it was really, really bad. Even just thinking about it, like that day, it still kind of, gets me all, emotional. But basically, it was so bad that the doctor had to put her to sleep to do the echo. And his words verbatim was like, "I don't know how this child is alive." Yeah, so it was that bad. So I just bundled her up. Like within a few days, we headed to America. At 6 months, she had the open heart surgery. She didn't recover like they thought she would. They thought maybe in 3 months she'd recover, we'd come back. It took 1.5 years for her to recover, yeah. So in that time, as the heart issue reduced, we were able to start dealing with the issues of Down syndrome. And we were blessed to be in America because we got assistance in that she was assigned a physical therapist. She was assigned an occupational therapist, and she was eventually, as she turned about 18 months, we had a little speech and music, and all those things really, really help. The key is for children with special needs, particularly where I'm familiar with is Down syndrome, is the early intervention. Because for all children, the major brain growth happens between 0 and 6. Before the they call it the brain hardens. You can still learn. We're learning to the day we die, but you do about 80% or 90% of your learning from that age. So early intervention is key because you're able to work with the child to reach the necessary milestones, to focus on those things that maybe they're struggling. With Down syndrome, there's a lot of developmental delays, cognitive delays.
Okay.
So it means you are working with them to kind of achieve those goals. But each child is different, just like neurotypical children, right? Every child is different. Everybody has a strength, everybody has a weakness.
Yes,
you work on your weaknesses. So it's even within that diagnosis, right? Just like with autism, there's a spectrum. It's the same thing. It's just the way human beings are, right? You might have a diagnosis, but where you fit in there, it just depends on the child, right? So that's kind of like the background of me getting into the special needs aspects, getting into kind of educating myself about Down syndrome, reading up. That time in America, I hadn't really met other people with kids with Down syndrome. I hadn't really seen any other children because we were just focused on saving her life, focusing on, okay, when are we going to be able to go home? We need to get her better. We need to focus. And I really, really, truly believe, I'm going off on a tangent a bit, that, because I feel it's key to say that God works. Like, I cannot explain to you. I've always believed in God, but through this experience, I can testify that God works. He heals, He speaks to you. I had an out-of-body experience in the hospital the day that she went to have surgery. So I just prayed, God take me, don't take her. For them, it wasn't like an out of the ordinary operation. They're like, oh, it's just routine. There's nothing routine about opening up my child's chest, you know? And they prepare you for the intensive care unit, the ICU, because I've never seen anything like that. Like these children that are fighting for their lives, and small children. So that really gives you perspective. So when they were wheeling her away, I just prayed. I'm like, if anything, God, please take me, don't take her. And we were waiting in the waiting room, and I fell asleep. They couldn't wake me the whole period. The whole time of the surgery, they couldn't wake me. They had a nurse come and check my vitals. And that's why I said I had an out-of-body experience. I can't remember anything from that period. But the surgery was a success. It's just her recovery took a long time. But when you're living with a child who has some kind of special need, needs an additional attention, the environment that they're in is key.
Very important.
You know, children, I call it it's like osmosis, right? They can feel the environment, they can feel the essence. You know, they read things without them being said, you know, and an environment of love, an environment of support is key for children like this. It's key for all children, but they really sense these things. And an environment of love and support is the first thing in anything. Before you start talking about techniques and doing this and doing that, or seeing this therapist, if when the child comes home, there's tension, there's issues, you kind of leave them to the nanny or leave them to whoever's the minder, they can sense that. So it's key to make sure that even if you're working, both of you are working, then daycare, that at some point in the day, you're together. You're always trying to communicate to that child a feeling of love and support, because they're more receptive then to learn those things that they need to learn and be happy. You know, the key is to be happier. They will want to be happy. So I had conversations with my son. He was asking me, why does this person come to see Simone? Why can't I go in with them? It's not fair, you know, because he loves his sister. They bonded from the day they met when she was born. Then I had to figure out how to explain Down syndrome to a 4-year-old, because he was 4 at the time, and was like this, oh Lord, how am I going to do this? So I said, okay, you know, we have this book, we have a book in My Underpants Rule, because again, trying to teach a child of that age about their private parts. And they belong to them, they don't belong to anybody else. So I was like, okay, what if I look for books on Down syndrome? So I was looking for books on Down syndrome, and I found some, but the characters were all white. Yeah. And then they were one-offs. There wasn't anything with a continuous character. So I just managed with the ones I got, and he enjoyed them, and he was able to understand a bit about Down syndrome. So it was great. So a few weeks later, they're downstairs playing together, causing riot and chaos. And Simone was struggling with a particular toy. Okay. So he came over to help her. Okay. And it just, this light bulb, bing, just went off in my head. I was like, ooh. Oh, yeah. I've got a story here. Wow. So in that, I just was like, you know, I had at that time, I had been looking for books that had continuous characters with African children, Black African children. Because I was like, if I look for Black Nigerian, there might not be much. Let me look for Black African. Yes, just so they could start seeing themselves, right? So I had, in my research there, I'm looking for, get them a bit more familiar with seeing, you know, Black children. I came across some really lovely books. I came across a brilliant cartoon called Bino and Fino, and I've now connected with them, and it's awesome. It's an awesome relationship. It's great what they're doing, and they are the kind of pioneers for what I'm doing. And through that, I was able to then say, okay, well, I'm not really finding much. This idea for a story for them, of him helping her, something about the Down syndrome, I was just like, okay, but what if it's just not one story? You know, what if I write a series of stories? There must be other parents like me.
Who need this stuff.
And I wasn't finding anything. And to begin with, I thought I was kind of hallucinating. But I always say my husband has a PhD in Google. So I had him look. I'm like, babe, am I crazy? I'm looking for this thing. I'm not really finding anything with, Black kids, continuous characters, and one of the main characters has special needs. I said, forget about the Blackness. Let's just look for things that have continuous characters, special needs. Do you know, in the world, I only found one, and that's in Ireland, and it's a cartoon called Punky. Hilarious. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm not going crazy. This is actually real. There's a whole market here. There's obviously a need, because I cannot be the only one looking for it. So with my background of TV, film production, I was like, okay, you know, I think I can do this. It's not too far out from my background. I'm not a writer. I haven't written stuff. I'm not an author, but I've seen enough scripts. And I'm telling a real story, right? So every story I've written is based in something I either experienced as a child, or my sisters, or my actual kids I've seen. It's very relatable. It's very relatable. So it's Ugo and Simsim. So the first book is What is Down Syndrome? We just hit the ground running, straight in.
I'm going to have us pause for a second, because I want to get into what the actual books are. So let's leave that for the second bit of it. But guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
So my name is Chioma Mera, aka Chigol, and Tonye Faloughi-Ekezie, I keep on calling her middle name, is family to me, and I've known her for a very long time, and I know her children, and we're always in the same circles and everything. So when she told me about Ugo and Simpson, she was like, would you please? I was like, before she even said I said, please. I entered, I said, I'm there. And I mean, it's been an amazing journey and a time to just be a part of this project, because I think it's going to go a long way to send a message, because I think with Down syndrome is a thing that people don't understand or seem to understand as much. We're getting to the place where we understand it more, but something like this will help the children, parents, and families who are, you know, finding it challenging and just navigating those waters. And I'm proud and happy and honored to be part of this wonderful work.
Welcome back to Heart of the Matter. We're still talking to Tonye about, you know, special needs. And now we are joined by Mr. Ugo. Hi, Ugo. How are you?
Fine.
High five. There we go. Yes. Fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. Oh, you want to do another one? Oh, awesome. Yes. Good one. Okay. So, one of the things we're going to get into before we went on the break was the book, and Ugo's brought the book. Do you want to show me your book? So, this is what, the first one in the series?
This is the first one. So, as I say, God has given me suddenly this passion. Ugo and Sim Sim. Nice. So it came from the one story, but 13 have been generated. Since, yes. So I realized that in my research, I wanted continuous characters because I stumbled on a market that is not being addressed or being addressed by very little people, you know. The people who are doing it, as like I said, Bino and Fino are doing it very well. But I realized that we were approaching this from a totally new angle. In that one, yes, we are creating content for children. Black children, African children, Nigerian children. But we're inclusive in that we are also bringing to light and bringing to awareness the everyday life of a child with Down syndrome. Yeah. And something like this becomes more normal once you start to talk about it, once you start to open up and make people aware of it. I realized that this kids platform I'm doing is a way for me to fulfill the mission I believe I've been called to do, which is to raise awareness, which is to help other parents, which is to make an avenue where people can share information, but also for people who might not even know a child with special needs, but may have an interest in what it's about. So through this, I decided, okay, we have this platform, which essentially is going to become a brand. But I need to start this community, which is our main goal. Yeah. So I started Simone's Oasis Down Syndrome Month, which was March, actually on World Down Syndrome Day, which was March 21st. Wow. And what I'm trying to do with that is share the information I know, share our experiences. Because, you know, in Nigeria, someone will look at me and think, life is good, it's good, everything is rosy. But when you start to talk, when they start to hear your story, then there becomes a connection. Then they want to know more. Then they want to ask. They want to find out, oh, actually, I have a cousin who has autism, or I know someone with Down syndrome. Actually, I know this person, this school. So they're able to now feel free to maybe talk or ask questions. And I'm a very open person. I won't get offended if you're going to ask me. If someone stops me in the street and says, oh, does your child have? I'm not one who gets offended if someone thinks my daughter is a boy. Speaking
of Nigerian and the Nigerian culture, I was going to say that how do you help Nigeria? Because not everybody has the means to sort of get help and assistance and travel and do all this stuff.
That is an extremely good point, and that is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because financially I'm not going to lie to you, it's been killer, but luckily we've had support. Nigeria, health insurance doesn't cover this kind of thing. So then you're kind of left on your own. You know, we're middle class, we're able to struggle to meet it. But that got me thinking about, what if we couldn't meet these things? How do you bring up these children and you can't afford this therapy? Even before the therapy, what about the information? What about the knowledge?
Yes.
You know,
just that in itself.
And then even going back to like when you first get the diagnosis, how is the diagnosis given in the first place? We were blessed in that the diagnosis was given in a very practical, pragmatic way. It wasn't like, oh, it's the end of the world, this child will never achieve, they won't live past this age. That's not what we had. Got the diagnosis and she was like, okay, this is what you need to do, this, start her on therapy, do this, it'll be fine. And so with that, when someone gives it to you like that, you're like, okay, well, it's not the end of the world. There are things we can do.
So they present you an optimistic...
It wasn't even optimistic. I would say a realistic. You know, a practical approach.
Because that's the truth. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. You need to have a practical approach. Yes, you need to deal with the kind of trauma of it and getting your head past that. But you need to be practical. So aside from that, I realized that, okay, one, We have to kind of educate medical professionals in how to give the diagnosis. Yeah. 2, I had talked to a couple of people. So one is my aunt. She's in Port Harcourt. She has a daughter with Down syndrome who is 29, who is doing fabulous. He went to university, teaches, works at a church also. So I was quizzing her. I'm like, how did you do it? In your time, there wasn't all this.
Yes,
how did you do it?
The kinds of advancements and sort of like new.
She's a very
modern,
intelligent woman. And so she would constantly be working with her at home, pushing her, challenging her, telling her there's nothing that she can't achieve, right? So she does very well. She does extremely well. And then my tailor, this is funny, my tailor in Bonnie Camp, I looked at his DP one day. So when I went in, I asked him, your daughter, how old is she? He said, she's 8. I said, does she have Down syndrome? Because he didn't know my daughter had Down syndrome. So he said, yes. I'm like, but it's clear, you can see that she's doing very well. Yes. I'm like, what did you do?
And that's your tailor at Bonnie Camp?
That's my tailor in Bonnie Camp.
Wow, wow.
What did you do? He said, no, we read with her, we train her, we train her body, all those things. So they were just switched on. But what if you're not switched on? What if you're someone who doesn't have the means, not switched on, or you want to know more, but there's no avenue for you to know more?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I've started Simone's Oasis, because we have to disseminate this knowledge, right? The knowledge allows you to be able to do your best for these children, but not only for these children, right? For the parents need support. It's not only financial, it's emotional, it's directional.
Yes.
So I had looked at, if we were in this situation and I couldn't afford this, and therapy is very expensive.
Very.
And what they're doing, it's not rocket science. Technicians, the doctors who are trained in behavioral specialists, speech therapists, it's a skill. And they study it and they reason with it. They have to understand how the brain works, how the brain works with the body and how the messages are sent. But in terms of the techniques, anybody, if I can learn it, anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn it because it's really, really basic. But it's just about repetition, right? It's about spending that time, doing that time. So if we're able to kind of say, okay, well, your child needs some fine motor skill works. Here's some of the things you can do at home. It doesn't cost money. You don't have to buy this, buy this, buy this. What do you have in the house? Okay, you can work with this. So trying to put these things together and this attitude that, okay, I might not have the money to have a therapist, but through this avenue, I can learn. I can ask questions. I had someone ask me, I'm thinking about sending my 2-year-old with Downs to school. What should I be looking for? So easy. But for her,
it was very daunting.
It was daunting. But I've been through that experience, so I could share what I looked at, share my experience.
Remind me,
Simone's Oasis.
Simone's Oasis. Yeah. You're building a community of people to help each other, to help people who might need information, who might need access to sort of like facilities and just all kinds of techniques and whatever they need to just kind of help their children.
We've partnered with the Down Syndrome Foundation of Nigeria, and we've also partnered with a company called AskTokes.com. It's headed by Tokes Bakare, and she's a behavioral analyst, and she's been working with children with special needs for the past 13, 14 years here in Nigeria. Amazing.
And she's fantastic.
Fantastic. So I think the key is that we can't hide away, right? We can't hide these children away. These children can be very full, functioning members of society, contributing members of society, happy members of society. But we are not giving them any mind, any service, and we're doing a disservice by hiding them, locking them up, keeping them out of sight. Because at the end of the day, you're just going to produce someone who's not capable. Bringing them out, having them interact is key. Doing the early intervention, it's key. Because you're able to produce someone who can be independent. there's a girl, Treasure. She's on the Special Olympics team, and she's an amazing athlete. And she has Down syndrome, and she's leading the Nigerian Special Olympics team. So there's so many inspiring stories out there.
That just make you believe that
Believe, because it's about changing the mindset, right? These children don't have a problem with themselves having Downs. They don't see it as a problem. Nobody says, oh, I don't want Down syndrome. They're happy. You know, but they feel things too. They have moods like us. They're sad, they get frustrated, just like us. But they're genuinely not bothered by the fact that they have Down syndrome. It's just an aspect of who they are. So we need to have society look at that and say, hey, that's just an aspect of who they are. And we are helping society by creating individuals who want to work, who want to be independent, who want to give back.
Fantastic.
You know, instead of pigeonholing them into so they're out of sight.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like I didn't even look at any of my questions. You're just giving me all this information.
I'm really passionate about it.
I love it. I think it's great stuff that everybody needs to know. How can they continue to get these wonderful tips and the information that they need if they want to reach you?
You can reach us. You can find us on social media platforms and all the social media platforms at Simone's Oasis.
Okay.
And it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook,
everywhere,
Twitter, everywhere.
At Simone's Oasis. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the heart of the matter. It was amazing talking to Tonye. I mean, I found it so insightful that not only has she been through what she's been through and now knows how to deal with special needs, especially her children, but she's offering all the knowledge that she has and putting it into media and entertainment to educate other people and building a community for people to find support and strength. It's amazing, truly, truly amazing. But before we go, make sure that you follow us on our social media platforms, which is at HOTM TV on Instagram and Facebook, and HOTM channel on YouTube. Until next time, my name is Ayo Adeosi. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.